Today, we have Francesco Calcavecchia with us to present his work on creating a model registry with GTO. Francesco made some major contributions to GTO, which we are so grateful for. Today, he will tell us about that and how he used DVC and GTO to build a combined model and experiment registry for his work at Aon Deutschland. With that, I'll turn over the floor to Francesco.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for the introduction. And by the way, I'm completely impressed that you pronounced my surname correctly. That's rare. Okay, let's maybe jump to the slides. So let's jump directly to the content. So a case for GTO. So this talk is divided more or less in two parts. In the first part, I would like just to describe how I use GTO and DVC in one of the projects I've been working with. So it was actually a project that was ongoing for 4 years. So it was, if you want, a legacy project. And then in a second part, I would like to make some comments and share some thoughts around it. Okay, so let's start. So maybe a little bit of context. So I work for Aon Deutschland. So Aon is a huge enterprise, so 70,000 employees. You can basically make a town. Aon Deutschland is one of the branches, if you want. Actually, it's a company, which is focused on energy sale in Germany. Okay, so that's what we are doing. And therefore, the machine learning case I'm going to talk about is related to that, and in particular is about churning. So we have around 8 million contracts. So I think we have like about 80 to 90% of the market share in Germany. So a huge number. And for marketing reason and other reason, it's interesting for the business to know what are the churn scores? So what is the probability that that contract will be ended in the future? And so they want to have these churn scores once a month. And this is basically what the business context is about. I think it's sufficient for most of you. Let's start maybe by describing what I found at the beginning. So the pre-existing solution, the one that was going on for the past 4 years. So it mainly consisted of a Python package, which had, surprise, surprise, two main commands. One was train and one was predict. And how did it work? So this custom Python package was taking an input, so a train config, that had embedded an SQL query that was run against a SQL database that we had to extract the data necessary for training. As an output, you could get not only the train model, so a atypical model, but also some exploratory data analysis plots and figures. And can you see the rightest part of the slides, or it's only me that I have this thing blocking it?
We see the Python box and SQL and train, predict.
So can you read the model metrics on the right?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, good. Then all good. I don't, but I know what is there. Okay, good. So and also some model metrics, which included some plots and also some a flat file like CSV with metrics. Once this was produced, then data scientists would manually inspect this output and decide if this model was good or not. And in case it was, then the pickle model would be used to predict the churn scores. So again, you have an input for the predict command and an SQL query that is used. Okay, so I think it's rather simple. I mean, I'm oversimplifying perhaps, but I think it's sufficient for our purposes, and I think it's already clear. And now let's maybe zoom in on and consider the model lifecycle. So what was the problem that was bugging me the most about the current setup? So the thing that was bugging me the most is the following. So suppose you train a model. So So you get this output, you put them in production, meaning that this pickle model is used to produce the churn scores, all good. Then maybe you train again, and maybe you don't like the model, okay, delete it. Then maybe you retrain, now this time you like it, and then you decide to put it in production. What happens is that, or what was happening is that the previous model were deleted. So if you ask me, hey, which model did you use 2 months ago? How were the figures? No idea, which is not like optimal, right? So this was the part that was bugging me the most. And I thought, okay, this is something I need to address. I need to fix it. So the major two problems are rather obvious. So there's no history and there's no way to roll back in production. So suppose I put in production a model and then suddenly I realize, oh no, this is a disaster. I can't just go back to the previous one and use that one. Okay. So then given this problem, how to solve them? I think, again, it's rather obvious. So no history, maybe you want to version. And here in this case, I also thought, hey, maybe since we are versioning and we are doing it from scratch, maybe we don't version only the model, but also all the other outputs. So the EDA and the model metrics. Then the other problem of not having the possibility of rollback in production could be solved by introducing some stages, so model stages. Okay, so again, rather simple. So of course there are plenty of solutions out there that can help you in this. But oftentimes they come as a full packages, so you have to take your architecture and redesign it to fit in a certain framework, okay? And this is usually not my approach. So I know these are my problem. I want to solve this and only this. So nothing more, nothing less. And so then I start thinking, okay, how to version? Well, there's a tool called Git that we all know and we all love. Why not using that? Of course, here you are dealing with maybe a bit large data. So perhaps you want to use DVC or Git LFS. In my case, I decided to go for DVC, but it's not the only option. So Git can help you versioning. And then what about the stages? So if you think about using Git, one rather obvious option would be to use tags, so Git tags, to manage them. So maybe you have a tag, which is the one that signifies that a certain commit contain the model in the staging stage or in the dev stage or prod stage, and then you can change them and so on and so forth. And so I thought, yeah, why not? And then looking a little bit around, I found out that actually there's already something existing, which is called GTO, Git Tag Operations, which is part of the iterative tool. So if we want to be correct on how it went, actually, I found out about it during the launch. So the presentation of MLM, so I was attending it from Iterative, and they talk on the side also about this tool. And so I knew about its existence, and then I check it again and say, this is exactly what I had in mind. Great. Good. So maybe before going on, I just want to give you a very quick introduction to GTO, just 3 commands that I think are probably the most important one. So what can you do with GTO? How does it look like? So you can use a command called GTO register, and then the name of your model or artifact in general. And this will create a tag with a semantic versioning that will just register in your repository that at a certain point you create this artifact and you have registered there. Okay, so you can always go back to this. And then there's another command, which is the GTO assign and then the stage. And this allows you to promote a model or an artifact to the various stages you want to define. So you can define as many stages as you like. And then, yeah, you can promote the artifacts. And then finally, the command GTO show, which gives you like an overview about your registry. And actually, this command has tons of options, so it allows you to do plenty of things, but this is like the basic version of it. Good. So given that I decided to go this way, because to me it looked like the straightforward way, how did the model lifecycle change? So I created a Git repository. So again, it was Git repository with DVC and GTO installed. And then I put there the output of my very first training, and I register the version, so the model, sorry, and that's why in latest we have version, in this case, 0.0.0. And then I also promote it. So again, version 0.0.0 in prod. Then what happens? So suppose I run the train command, I get my output. I would use git/dvc push, and then this new file would go in the model registry. And then use GTO register to make so that in the latest, version of the model is the one I just pushed. Then a data scientist would manually inspect the model. I didn't change this at that stage. And then use a GTO assign stage prod. And this way, in prod, I have the latest version of the model. Okay, I can always roll it back if I want to with the proper command from GTO. In this case, I went forward. And then when I want to run predict, what I do is first I get the commit hash of the model in production with this command, GTO show. And then I use DVC get to get the pickle model, and finally use it in the prediction. Okay, so this is how it changed. You can see now it's fully tracked. You have stages. I can roll back and do whatever I want. Great, and it was really simple. So, and this is why I love this solution. So I think I truly believe that simple is beautiful, and in this case, I don't think you can make it simpler than this. So I didn't need any extra infrastructure. So just Git that we already had, of course, and a cloud storage that we also had. The tech stack use is transparent and very well known by pretty much anyone. So it's really easy for anyone to pick it up. And what I also like about this solution is that if you think about it, it can be applied to pretty much anything. So if you take any legacy project that you probably have seen, you could use this simple approach to have this versioning and rolling back possibility that oftentimes are critical and very desirable, possibly the most desirable ones. Okay. So this is what I've done. Now I would like to make some extra considerations around it. So some thoughts to share. So the first one is, as you have seen, this model registry is a dedicated Git repository. This was not obvious. I mean, let's say the iterative tools allow you to do a lot of things, so you don't necessarily have to go this way. There's another possibility. And let me explain what I mean. So again, when I joined, there was a Git repository containing the input for the input config. And the train and predict were part of the CI/CD pipelines of GitLab. That's the tool we use. And so when this pipeline were running, we were getting this output, as already mentioned several times. And where do you store them? I mean, why not putting directly in the same Git repository? I mean, so in this Git repository, you could have input and output. And this actually, it's possible. And especially CML is one of the tools from Iterative, can help you in that. But we decided not to go this way. We decided to use a separate repo. So this repository was communicating with another one during the pipeline, as I explained you already. Okay, and so why did I decide to go this way, which maybe is not the right one for you? Maybe it's not, there are better ways, I don't know. But I think that in this way, you can avoid a complex CI/CD. I mean, this CML commands that is provided, it works and everything, but I find it a little bit not so clean when, so you push a commit to a repository, then a CI/CD pipeline starts, which produce some files which are again committed, which, I mean, in principle, this would trigger a new CI/CD pipeline. Of course, this can be blocked, and that's what CML does. But still, it's a bit, strange. Plus, your CI/CD pipeline definition can really grow in complexity depending on what you have. And also, I think it's better because it promotes a more modular architecture. So this is not the case for our project, but once you have this model registry as a separate entity, it means that if another team in my company needs to produce churn scores, maybe on a different set of input data, they can take our model very easily. And it's only that, it's very simple, easier to grasp rather than a combined repository which contains also input and complex CI/CD pipeline, etc. So in essence, I believe at least that an artifact registry should be a self-standing storage entity, and this is what I was trying to achieve. Okay, that's the first thought. Another one. So would like to share what I think are the missing touches for GTO. So GTO is an ongoing project. I mean, it started very recently. It's very new, relatively new. And so I asked myself if I should ask to Santa Claus, how should my artifact registry look like? And then I think my major requirements would be, I want it to be a black box. I don't want to know how it's done inside. I just want to have the possibility to put and pick artifacts. I want to have the possibility. So actually I wanted, when I put and pick, when I put artifacts, they are versioned. And I want to have stages that I can use. So do we have this in GTO? So we do have stages, we do have version, of course, but what is missing currently is the possibility of putting and picking artifacts. So you have to use Git and perhaps DVC commands to achieve that. But actually, yeah, it's an open issue, as Alex here knows, he created. So it's something that will be added in future, but currently is missing. So in conclusion, currently this I think is the missing part for GTO to be a really complete product. But I also want to mention that have been already done some step in this direction. So for example, now it is where I contributed, even though I think 98% of the credits goes to Alex, but anyway, I contributed as well. Now GTO can be run against a remote repository, which I think is a great step forward, because previously, so what I was doing is I always needed to git clone the Git repository, because GTO was working only for local repository. So imagine every time git clone and git push, a bit annoying. Now I can run directly GTO against my remote repository, which is way better. And it's in the direction of having a black box. Of course, I need a URL, but don't care what is it. It's a string in the end. Okay, then another some consideration that I think maybe are relevant is that I can easily imagine someone coming and telling me, hey, come on, let's be serious. If we are talking about the model registry, you must show the metrics of the model in the table. And what is my reaction is, yeah, I mean, could well be, yes, but I think it's perhaps not so important. Let me maybe formulate a little bit more. So first of all, GTO is a tool for a generic artifact registry, not necessarily a model registry. So I think it's not part of the core functionality you would expect. I mean, of course, model registry is rather important, so perhaps desirable, but I would say, yeah, it's not the first thing to focus on. Then another thing is, I always find these metrics in model registry a little bit confusing because they really depend on how you split, for example, training and test data. And maybe at a certain point you change how they're split, and this is not shown in the model registry. And therefore, suddenly you have changes in the metrics, and yeah, what does it mean? It's hard to maybe follow. And plus, at least in my experience, the metrics you look at change over time, and then you are in the situation like a typical situation of a tabular data where there are missing values, which are never. It's never a pleasant situation, I believe. And then another thought around it is, well, one other option could be, rather than when you register a model passing directly all the metrics, what about if you store the metrics as artifacts? In this way, you can even store plots, whatever you like. And then, of course, like if you imagine your model registry to contain all the metrics as artifacts, it would be very nice to have the possibility to iterate through all maybe the history and get, for example, a certain plot and shown for all history, or maybe some just a metric value from a JSON file. Yeah, but this is just my thoughts, and not, I mean, it's not like a truth. Finally, well, almost finally, semantic versioning. So what I think is very, very, very interesting in GTO is that it introduces this semantic versioning. So you have patch, minor, major, so these three numbers, which I think opens to interesting possibility. Not all model registry offers that. Oftentimes it's only one number. And I think it's pretty interesting, but he also raised some question. What is the meaning of these three values? And this actually is a question that I received from a data scientist, a really good one, who is my colleague, who asked me, okay, how should we use this? So I thought a little bit about that, and I would like to share with you my thought about it, because I think could open to interesting consequences. So I would like to distinguish between tabular data. So in case that's your artifact, or model. So what is a patch in tabular data? So a patch in software means a fix, right? So functionality are exactly the same. There was something wrong, I fix it. So perhaps in tabular data, this means a values fix. So the table has the same shape, has the same schema, but maybe some values need to be fixed. And this is what a patch would be. What is a minor? Minor in software normally means, okay, new functionality, but we are not breaking retrocompatibility. So it means you can keep use the library as you did before. You don't need to change the code. It just has something extra. So what could it mean for tabular data? Well, it could mean that you have maybe fresh data, so extra rows, and perhaps extra columns as well. But the schema stay the same. And then what is a major? It means a change of schema. So maybe you rename a column, or a column from string became a date time column, this kind of changes. Okay, then finally, model. So what is a patch for a model? So I think it could make sense perhaps to think that a patch is a retrained model. Maybe you receive some fresh data. So the model looks, and so as a black box is exactly as before, just gives different values because it received fresher data. What is a minor? I would say is, well, here we are in a model, we are closer to software, so it's probably easier. Maybe it's a non-breaking change in the API. So maybe you add some functionalities. So maybe now, instead of giving you just the prediction, so for example, classification 0-1, it gives you the prediction probability. I don't know, just giving a suggestion. And what is a major change? Well, this means that you need to make some changes in the code that is making use of it. So well, it could be a breaking change in the API. It could also be that maybe you need a new environment, so the requirements change. Maybe, I don't know, you start using TensorFlow. I don't know, just saying something. Good. We are almost at the end, so last slide. So perspective. So after like these months using GTO, I had the chance to think about it quite a lot, and I really believe that GTO is important addition to the iterative ecosystem, because it really opens a new possibility for GitOps. And so again, just to give some food to your fantasy, this I think is now mentioned also in the official documentation of GTO. So, but you can easily imagine by operating on Git tags to have some CI/CD pipeline running as a response to it. So, for example, I don't know, I train a model, I push it into my model registry. Okay, so it's a new commit. Maybe there's a pipeline that it's running and running some test, maybe behavioral test to check the business, if it corresponds to the business requirements against the model. And if successful, maybe they will register the model. Okay, so it means registry means a new tag. Maybe this will trigger a new CI/CD pipeline. And this what will it do? Maybe it will check if the model would break anything in production. And suppose everything goes well, then I can promote the model to production. So this means a new Git tag. This means that a new pipeline maybe start running and deploy the model into production. And it's very nice because it's controlled fully from Git. Everything is version. You can check what's happening. And so it really brings a lot of power to the GitOps ideas. And like just the simple example I described, I think really suggests a turn into an event-driven and version machine learning pipelines that are running through CI/CD. Okay, and then maybe another possible use case is creating data catalogs as Git repos using perhaps DVC and GTO. So why I mentioned this? So in many companies, at least where I've worked, oftentimes the data sources are problematic. They are not documented. It's hard to follow the changes that are done behind the scenes. Maybe having like a GTO repository that works as data catalogs could be a great thing. You could, in the README, you could describe the data, and with the tags, you could notify to everyone, hey, for example, we received new data, or we had some fixes, or I don't know. So I'm not using this, so it's just an idea that I'm throwing again to stimulate your fantasy. But I think it could open a new perspective as well. And again, so with DVC, you could already do a lot, but with now the addition of Git tags, you can do much more. That's what I think. That's why I was very excited about this. And with this, I think I'm done. So thank you very much for listening. If you would like to stay in touch with me, this is the QR code to my LinkedIn profile. And in case you want to connect, just send me a short message. I was part of this, of the iterative talk, so I can distinguish you from recruiter and I can accept your invitation. Okay. Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward for like a discussion.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Francesco. So we do have a few questions in the chat already. Alex asked, when you version the EDA, do the different versions correspond to the same analysis, same plots, same tests, etc., performed on the new data, or are they different?
Sometimes same data, sometimes different. When it's same data is especially if maybe I change. So suppose I change something in the config about the model, and then I use the same exact data, right? So I may have multiple and identical EDA if this is I hope I got the question right.
Alex, did that answer your question?
Yes. It does answer the question. Thank you.
Cool.
Welcome.
Okay, the next one was from Michael. He's asked, is your model registry a private repository? I had so much trouble with credentials using a private repo as a model registry and pulling from it in another repo using CI/CD.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Totally understand. This actually, it could have been a slide. I struggle with that as well. So currently, the way to protect it is that the actual data are on a storage account. So to use DVC to get the data, I must pass these credentials. So this is the way. And this, again, it's a very good point. I completely forgot about that. It's also something that makes you struggle a little bit treating this model registry with GTO as a black box. Why? Because not only you must know that it's Git DVC, you must also know that there's a storage account behind the scenes, and so set it up. It would be nice if everything would be self-contained. Please come with some suggestions, so maybe we can work it out in GTO. I also raised this problem in an article, and I actually consider it quite interesting. There are some options to encrypt data as part of a Git repository. And so you just need a password. So basically, imagine you can use artifact registry. You have to pass the URL and a password, perhaps some sort of credential, and this will unencrypt maybe a file that contains the storage account credentials. So maybe moving a little bit the problem, but then inside you could even store other credentials, right? So it's only one password. It becomes a little bit easier.
Cool. David Sacchini asked hi, I double the above question on private repositories. I was never able to create a data model registry using DVC on private repos. Public ones are okay. So yeah, it's just the second of that one. And David said, please feel free to reach out to us on Discord with any questions on that. But does anyone have any other questions on Francesco's presentation? I would like to say, so the new slide was also like the framing, right, of the semantic versioning and the patch minor. That was cool. I like that thought process and definition. I think that's super important for teams like, okay, this is what we mean, and, and setting that up. So that was really a cool way to think about that. I like that framework. That was cool. But does anyone have any other questions?
I have a question. Do you... So I assume that for any data scientist or whoever wants to check which model is in production or something, they do this through GTO show, through this CLI, I assume. Do you kind of miss some sort of UI? Or I just have the feeling in the past working in teams that from the model registry, for some reason, the most useful part they felt was just the UI, just having a single place to go and just see, oh, okay, this is the model. Do you feel that it's cumbersome to use the CLI, or all your team is okay with that?
Okay, so first of all, maybe correct me, Jennifer, but I think DVC Studio should help in that if you want.
Yeah. Yes, Iterative Studio has a web interface that's all pretty and nice if the team doesn't like the command line interface. So yeah, you could use that as your tool for the team for people that aren't comfortable in the CLI. But yeah, otherwise, yeah. And model registry is in Iterative Studio as well. Yeah,
exactly. Then maybe other 2 points. So one, if you really like UI, and you're familiar with the naming convention used by GTO, which is simple and rather straightforward, I'd say, you can also go to GitLab or GitHub, I don't know what you're using, and just go in the Git tag sections, and you will find everything there. And you can also search for tags and so on. don't know. Personally, I'm completely a geek guy, so I'm happy. The more I stay on the terminal, the happier I am. So I love it that it's on the terminal.
I didn't.
Sorry, yes,
to sell
right. And the question,
studio.
data scientist. I mean, I'm working with this data scientist. Honestly, he's very skilled when it comes to command line and so on. I think he loves VI, for example, as an editor. So he's, of course, totally fine with that. So I it's a question. Maybe if maybe there's more data scientists in the audience, maybe they can say,
like how do you
what they think about it.
Comfortable with. Welcome, Data Cycle. Hi, you did a really great article that we had in Heartbeat recently. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks. I'm preparing something more with Rust this time.
Awesome.
So let's see. I have an internal question that, so for example, even in the writing in the console or in the terminal, I can see a table of the model versions, right? When using the GTO, like internally, how it's doing it? Is it querying somewhere or just querying the Git history and creating the table?
It's probably Alex can answer you in full details, but basically are all Git tags, right? So it basically interfaces with the Git command line tool and query for all the Git tags and then show them. I don't know if it has also some caching, but I don't think so. Alex, maybe you know the subtle details.
So Alex is our maintainer of GTO along with Mikhail Sveshnikov. So go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, Francesco, you're pretty much right. So it just gets all the Git tags for the repo and then parses them to understand what artifacts are there, what versions they have, what stages they were promoted to, and then you see this table.
Yeah. The reason for asking it, because let's say I have now 50th number version. So every time I run that in the console, does it cache or it runs from the beginning to the end and create the table every time?
Yeah, great question. Currently, it creates it from scratch every time. I investigated a bit about optimizations. So I'm there are a couple of ways to do it more optimal. So if you have this problem, then please raise an issue and we'll fix it.
Yep, thanks.
Yeah, and I did some benchmarks, so it works fast enough until you have 1,000 or more Git tags. Then it starts to cause some waiting in the CLI.
Yeah, I'm not experiencing any slowness, but I just wanted to know. But it's fine. It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, if you do, please contact me in Discord or raise an issue in the repo, and we'll see and fix it.
Cool. We have a question from Giuseppe. Can you draw a comparison with using DVC imports and external repository to manage artifacts?
External repository. You mean something like MLflow? What do you mean?
No, hi, Francesco. I'm setting up I'm probably early stage setting up an MLOps pipeline, and I wasn't aware of GTO, but we have problems with production dev data that have to be separated, and potentially also having the so also the models that are created. We want to have production and dev models separated. So the kind of solution that I came up with was using DVC external repositories to track both the data, but also the models. So in effect, a project might end up having 5 repositories, 2 repository, 1 tracking production data, 1 tracking dev data. The repository, the central one, will contain the actual machine learning training pipeline. And then another 2, which are the outputs, which contains the production model and the dev model. Obviously, I wasn't aware of GTO, and I'm kind of thinking, okay, probably things could have been done differently.
Yes. So I think now I got what you mean. I think in the past, what I was doing, GTO didn't exist even at the time. I was having in the same repository, I was having just 2 folders, dev, prod. That's how I was handling it. But I think with GTO, you can now definitely take advantage of it, right? And just have them together. So unify a repository, which I think it's in general. So I'm a kind of guy who likes to keep things separated when it makes sense. So the more I separate, the happier I am. But in this case, I think it makes a lot of sense to put them together because are very much connected, right? So
in my situation, we have problem with sensitivity. I work in a legal firm, so the production documents sometimes we can't even have a look at them. So we use a very small data set that we can have a look, and then the actual training has to be done.
Okay, sorry. Then when you meant dev, it means non-production data. So it's
non-production data. So we, as a data set we can have a look at that. It's not in production. We can run pipelines and see that things work from a not necessarily, the model will be trained. We don't look at the accuracy at that point. We just look, is the pipeline working? Is everything connected properly?
Okay. Yeah. Now I got it. Sorry. Well, in this situation, I don't know. What I'm thinking is, as you mentioned, they are really different. So I think even giving access to the Git repository to person who should not have access, maybe they can have access to dev, but not to prod, can create some problems. It depends how you set up things. But I would suggest that probably what you have done is still the best, because even if I use GTO to keep them separated, or even actually in this case, what I would do is probably use define 2 artifacts. So data prod, data dev, and have them. But the problem is that, as long as you don't want to go in a rather cumbersome, at least for my taste, setup of DVC, where you have 2 remotes, one is for dev and one for prod. So if you want to have one single remote, then people who have access to dev have access also to prod. So supposing again that you want to protect your data by saying the data are actually on a storage account, so you need the credential of the storage account. So the Git access to the Git repository is not sufficient. But then you would need 2 remotes. At least this is what is coming up to my mind. Maybe other people have a different suggestion. So my personal thoughts are the current setup perhaps is a good one.
Right, okay. I will investigate a little bit more on GTO and see if that can be also something that can be useful. But I understand it's a particular setup and a little bit complex. Thanks.
Yeah, welcome.
But your setup sounds very interesting. So if you ever want to present at a meetup, let me know. It helps the community understand how they can do things. So
actually, indeed, I would be very interested.
So see, Francesco would be there.
Right, okay. I might have to bring it to a point where it is approved and I get approvals from my company to present it. But that could be a good idea.
That'd be awesome. All right, let's see. A couple of people had to drop, but Philip, before he had to go, but he asked, where are the underlying artifacts stored? So we will include it here for YouTube's sake.
Well, as said, it's in the cloud storage. So I use DVC. So DVC push to the remote.
Okay, perfect. And
Uh,
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I have a question. And do you ever clean up old artifacts? Do you use garbage collector or just stay in the storage forever?
This question is actually more tricky than may sound at the beginning. Explain why. So first I answer directly. No, there's no garbage collection. I keep everything because storage is cheap and I can keep this data. But have sort of a similar, like in some cases, you have some data that, since our customer data, you are not allowed to store. So, or you can keep, but for up to 30 days. If it's more than 30 days, actually, you get into some bureaucracy you really don't want to get into. And this, for me, is also causing problem because imagine, like, I used to be a data scientist for 5 years, so allow me to say, as a data scientist, I really want to be able to, if someone comes to me, hey, 6 months ago you did these values, how did it happen? I really want to be able to say, yeah, like here is the exact explanation. I can reproduce it at any time. But because of this issue, some data cannot be kept forever, and and maybe I would like also to answer like how to handle this situation. Like for the kind of sensitive data, I am actually not using DVC, not needed for that, at least for now. But I already know how to how you could handle that. So you could still use DVC normally, no need to do garbage collection, anything, at least for Azure, but I'm pretty confident that all other cloud provider offer the same. So in Azure, you can say, okay, in this storage account, data that have been stored, so any file that has been stored will be automatically deleted after 30 days. So what happened? Your Git repository will still have all the DVC file and everything, but you will not be able to DVC get the data behind it. So you cannot do DVC pull for the data that have been stored more than 30 days before. So this is, I think it's nice, especially because in a way you still can keep the history of what's happening, the changes in the Git repository. And you still have and you have the protection that the data are automatically deleted after like the required amount of days. So sorry for the long answer, but I hope.
Thanks. It was interesting.
Cool. Does anyone have any more questions?
Yeah, I have one. Francesco, like you said, that it would be good to have, let's say, GTO command to pick and put artifacts to the registry. So how do you, currently you use GTO to get, let's say, Git tag and the path to the model, and then you can use DVC to kind of say, please get me the artifact using this path and this Git tag. But I can imagine integrating with DVC, for example, and implementing commands like GTO put and GTO pick. But what if you will use, let's say, Git LFS, or maybe you will store the artifacts manually somewhere on S3, and then you will know the path, but you won't be able to use DVC to get it. You will need some, special mechanics. So do you have an understanding how to make a general solution here?
Yeah, valid points. I thought a little bit about it, not extensively. But so, for example, Git LFS, in a way, it simplifies, but still you need to do Git pull, right? So GTO somehow needs to, I think it's a layer that you put on top of something else. Can be Git if you use Git LFS, can be DVC. But even with DVC, you will need Git, I believe. So Git definitely is going to be there. It already is. Possibly DVC. as an extra layer. And then, so for like just a string, so like a URL. So I don't know. I'm a bit. I'm a little bit unsure about that because, for example, when you do DVC import, that's what you have, right? So you have a URL. You use DVC import. It creates for you a DVC file, which actually just contains URL. So personally, I would say, sorry, I can't start from a bare bone URL. Please adapt, use DVC, because otherwise we are reinventing the wheel. Because I mean, that's what DVC is about. For picking, for putting, I think it's the same story, probably. I mean, you still need to build GTO on top of Git and DVC. Regarding DVC against Git LFS, so I don't know. In a way, Git LFS make it easier because it's completely like, you don't see it, right? It's just Git. So in a way, it's nice. But you have to, for example, for me, I work with GitLab. So I need to get in touch with the people who are managing GitLab. It's not the most straightforward way. And it's not easy to have control on what's happening. So this is probably the main reason I chose DVC, because I chose, this is my remote. I can set up whatever I want. For example, this policy of deleting file if needed, or I don't know, I can rotate the keys, whatever. So I have more control. So I think normally, most cases, probably DVC would be the first option, I think.
Good answer.
Yeah, thanks.
Open source all the things. Cool. We have like a couple more minutes. Are there any more questions?
One last small question. Do you have a plan for this GTO to be like DVC, installable globally in an operating system, not like without any pip, let's say brew install or something like that for Windows or Linux?
Question for Alex.
Yeah, good question. We definitely can make that. Like again, please contact me after the call, and I'm pretty sure we can. Yeah, please do.
Okay. Fine.
Yeah, because there are like different places to publish GTO. So if you specify like you need, I don't know, brew or maybe apt-get or maybe something else, it will be much easier than implementing all the scope of possible places.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
The GTO link at the very top of the chat, it's in there for the repo. So you can go in there and create an issue. So yeah, we're about at time, so we'll close for today. But first I want to thank Francesco Calcavecchia for this beautiful presentation and all this great discussion that we had today. This was fantastic. And also Alex and Mikhail, you want to say hi? Mike Sveshnikov, you want to say hi to everybody? Alex and Mike are the people that created MLOps and GTO and are maintaining it and making it better. Yay. Hi. They also created a really great Christmas fun project with MLOps that you might want to check out. I'm going to put that right here in the chat right now, just to determine if you are naughty or nice, but a whole prediction deploying using MLOps. It was really fun. So you may want to see, I was naughty and nice, depending on which name you use of mine. So you never know. You may want to give it a try.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this product update video, please like and subscribe. Thanks, Stevie. And feel free to post comments and questions below. On our YouTube channel, we share videos on product updates, tutorials, and how members of our community use our tools as they solve problems in their domains spanning a wide variety of fields in the machine learning and AI space. Don't miss out on any of it. See the description below to find links in the docs for our tools. They are an excellent resource for getting started. Also visit our blog where you can find tutorials on our tools as well as product and company news. Join our Discord server to get support, help others grappling with the same issues as you, connect with other like-minded folks, and discuss our tools or other topics in the MLOps space. It's a great way to learn and get to know others worldwide who share your interests. We also have a job channel where you can find relevant job opportunities in the space. Finally, if you're really serious about taking your MLOps skills to the next level, we offer a free online course that is designed to help you understand the iterative philosophy and achieve your MLOps goals. Our mission at Iterative is to deliver the best developer experience for machine learning teams by developing an ecosystem of open modular ML tools. Thanks for making it to the end. DV and I will see you in the next video.